Session for Tuesday, September 8th, 2020. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Grace.
Councilman Scaringi,
Present.
Councilwoman Rossanetti,
Present.
Councilwoman Riley,
Present.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Present.
Councilman Burns,
Present.
Councilman Strawn,
Present.
President Scanlon,
Present.
7 people absent.
All right, let's get right into the agenda, please. Let's start with, we'll move off the agenda, go to 20-179, which is Jared Krim and Taylor.
Taylor, are you on with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Well, thank you for having me tonight. This is with regards to the city's...
Taylor, why don't you introduce yourself also to council?
I'm sorry?
Why don't you introduce yourself to council?
Sorry about that. Again, my name is Taylor Botar. I'm with Barton & LaJudas Engineers. We are assisting the city with the 6th Ward Sanitary Sewer Interceptor Project. And what we have in front of the council today is the beginning of the environmental review process for this project, also known as SEEKR. So the project generally involves relocating the city's existing interceptor sewer that is currently in the bank of the Susquehanna River, generally over by Conklin Ave and Duke Street and Webster Street. So what we are currently proposing is that sewer main be relocated outside of that river bank and outside of the floodplain. And with that, a pump station would be designed and installed to accommodate the hydraulic gradient. But right now we're just looking at the environmental review, which we need to get through for a number of reasons to allow the project to move forward, also to get it in a state where we can apply for potential grant applications. So with that, we have proposed a type 1 action of SEEKR. And the first part of that process is for the city to establish their intent to be lead agency. With that, we have prepared the environmental assessment form part 1 that should be reviewed by this council and accepted as part of the resolution that we have in front of you. The next step from there is that environmental assessment form would be sent out to interested and involved agencies who would then have 30 days to comment or object to the city's intent to be lead agency. And then the step after that, after our 30 days has passed, assuming nobody has objected, we would review parts 2 and 3 of the environmental assessment form, and the city council would make a negative or positive environmental declaration. So with that, we have the environmental assessment form part 1. Would the council like me to review any or all of that form? It's about 13 pages of questions and answers.
Taylor, I don't know if that's necessary. They could ask questions when you're done presenting.
Okay. I mean, that was my general overview of the project. You know, aside from that, I could get into the details of that assessment form. But that's the summary and all I really had.
Is there questions or comments on this?
Yes, I have a question. Hello?
What are the councilwoman? Go ahead.
Yes, so it states here on part 1 of this fund document that if we are creating a project that will be subsidized by state finances. We would not meet the requirements based upon this form. So are we seeking state finances for this project?
We could potentially seek state finances. Most grant applications for a project like this would require the environmental review to be completed before we apply for a grant application. So this would allow us to have that in order so that we could apply if and when grant applications do come out.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments?
I have a question.
Yes.
This is Councilwoman Friedman. Thank you, Mr. President. This is just a clarifying question about the process of this. Just to clarify, the reason why we have this, what seems like a more involved declaration to become lead agency, that's because this is a type 1 action and all of the previous actions thus far have been type 2. Is that correct?
Yes, type 2 action, Ray, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe a type 2 action was previously completed, which allowed for the design phase of the project, which we're working through right now. But the construction phase, which would include, breaking ground and physical disturbance, would require the type 1 action.
And Councilwoman, most of our actions are unlisted. They're either unlisted or type 2. You're right, but this is unique as a type 1.
Okay, great. Thank you for the clarification.
Councilman Burns.
Yeah, hi. All the talk about the environmental assessment, have we been over wherever this is being done, we've been failing on environmental assessment? Or is that the reason for the replacement?
The replacement, excuse me, the replacement for this interceptor is that it leaks and infiltrates when the river is high. We get river water in the sewer. When it's low, there's the possibility that because we can get it in, it can go out. And it's not in the greatest shape. It's probably over 100 years old. So it needs to be moved away from the riverbank so that if we ever had another huge flood and the bank eroded more, it could just be totally collapsed. So we want to move it inland and get it away from the river and get the river water out of the system.
Okay, thanks very much.
Yep.
Other questions or comments? Thank you, Taylor. Thank you, Jared.
I think Taylor can stick around for 20-178 if he'd like as well.
Mr. Standish, tell us about 2178, please.
Yes. This resolution is to enter into an agreement with Barton and Judas for a comprehensive sanitary sewer pump station study, of which Barton and Judas submitted an application, and we received a grant to perform a study on, Taylor, is it 9 pump stations?
Yes, 9 sanitary sewer pump stations.
And then what we hope to do with the report is to see what upgrades are needed and which pump stations, if any, need to be addressed now. And that this project, the report is funded through ESD?
EFC, the Environmental Facilities Corporation.
Yep, thank you.
Questions or comments on this? Councilwoman Friedman.
Thank you, Mr. President. In the proposed title, nice pump stations, is that supposed to be 9 pump stations?
9.
Okay, I didn't know if that was a kind of a specific
typo.
kind of pump station. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions or comments? Thank you, Ray.
Thank you.
Sorry?
Does Ray got any more?
No.
Why don't you do this one?
What's this one? 187?
Ray, stay around for a little bit.
All right.
All right, so Chuck wants to go to 2187, please. Who's presenting? Oh, Chuck Shaker's gonna, go ahead, Chuck.
187 is an ordinance to modify the 2018 bond ordinance. We're working on two bridges over on the south side, over Pierce Creek on Conklin Ave and on Belden Street. And all the bids came in, we're gonna need roughly $350,000 more in funding. 80% of this is funded with, I believe, federal funds. But we need to increase the bond ordinance by $350,000. Ask Ray to stay, because he's a little bit more aware of some of the details on this than I am.
Questions or comments on this? All right, Chuck. Thank you, Chuck. Thank you, Ray.
Yep, thank you.
This is Councilwoman Riley.
Yes, go ahead, Councilwoman.
Moving forward, if we're gonna hop around, can we give the page number so that we can move to the legislation expeditiously?
Yep, sorry about that. I'll make sure that happens. Okay, on to 2183, Steve Carson, page 58 to 61.
Thank you. So this ordinance refers to a previous ordinance that passed, permanent resolution, permanent ordinance 20-46. That was the budget to provide funding for the city's COVID programs. Just through an oversight, we were budgeting the one section of that budget $500 more. After talking to the mayor's office, we decided to just offset it from the admin line. So this is really just a transfer from the COVID admin line to the COVID program line.
Questions or comments on this? Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
All right, these are all from Mr. Shager now. RL 20-180, pages 62 to 125, these 5 or 6 RLs.
Okay, resolution 180 is to accept a donation from Boscov's in the amount of $1,170.75 for the police department. And we want to increase the gifts and donations by that amount and increase A3120.54118 police K9 unit. This is a donation. I sent the letter that Boscov sent to us that they wanted the money to go to the police department.
Questions or comments on this one? All right, Chuck, move on.
2181 is an ordinance to amend the 2020 capital fund budget to close various grant lines that are no longer active. The second page will list all the items, the expense and revenue lines that we need to close out. The largest item on there is a generator at Frederick Street Pump Station that's been completed and was $118,000 under budget.
Questions or comments on 20-181?
Yes, this is Councilwoman Riley.
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Are we moving the funds that remain in each line to another line, or we're moving it to the fund budget? Just to clarify for me.
We will not be spending this money. The grant is either expired or the project is done and there's no more use for those funds. So we're eliminating it so nobody spends it.
Okay. So what happens to the funds in the line?
I didn't hear what she said.
Where's the money go? Where's the money go? Where's the money go?
Where does the money go?
You say you're eliminating the money, but.
We take so they can't spend the expenses and we're not going to get the revenue. Those two come off together, so it's a wash. We're not going to get that amount of money. We're not going to spend it.
People that were giving us the money aren't going to get it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Yes, I heard him.
Yeah, okay. Other questions or comments on this? 182, Chuck.
2182 is a resolution to modify the 2020 comptroller's budget. In my budget, we had put a position in there for a assistant purchasing agent. And we're going to bring this person in prior to the purchasing agent retiring. We still want to do that, but the assistant purchasing title is not a civil service title that we have. So we want to change that assistant purchasing agent to just a purchasing agent. Salaries and everything will be exactly the same. Meaning this person coming in will be at a lower rate than the current person. But we'll have the two of the same titles, one with one wage, one with a lower wage.
Questions or comments on 182? All right, Chuck, move on. 185.
185 is an ordinance to amend the 2020 general fund budget and water fund budget to increase unemployment insurance for COVID-19 furloughs from various departments. If you look at page 2, you will see the unemployment insurance that we need to pay for April, May, and June. This is not all city employees, because there were employees that may have worked at the city last year and took another position elsewhere. If they lost that position, we have to pay part of their unemployment insurance. Going back to a question that Councilman Riley sent up to personnel, wanted to know how many people participated in the furloughs. The answer to that question is 28 people participated. It was 5,650 hours and savings of $116,960 in wages.
Questions or comments on 185?
This is Councilwoman Riley.
Yes.
Yes. So thank you, Mr. Shager, for that information. I was unable to capture it all. Do you have this written where you can send to council?
Do I have what?
You have the numbers that you quoted in some type of written format. I think you said 5,656 hours. Can you send that to us electronically?
I have it handwritten here I can send to you.
That would be great. I appreciate that.
Other questions on 2185, please? Councilwoman Friedman.
Thank you, Mr. President. These are not cumulative, correct? So if we were, for example, to figure out how much money is owed to code, it would be April plus May plus June, so it'd be approximately $8,000.
The code?
I'm just taking that for an example, because these are not cumulative, right? Like, so the total, there could be another column to the right that would be the total amount from each department.
Yes, there's going to be a total, there's going to be money in there for July and August also coming. Okay. I'm only doing what we had to do for those 3 months that I had to make a payment on.
Okay.
Okay. But you're correct for code. If you add up those 3 amounts, which is like $8,000, that's roughly what we paid. But it doesn't necessarily have to be people that took a furlough, because if there was a code person that left in January and then got laid off at their new position, we're paying his unemployment.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
I got it.
Yes, go ahead.
Are the furloughs, any word about when are people still out furloughed?
I don't believe there's anyone else on furlough right now, although I'm not 100% sure.
Everybody is back to work.
I believe so. There may be one person, possibly.
Other questions on 2185, please? Move on, please.
An ordinance to refund the 2000, or the January 2014 bond ordinance. Trying to find ways to reduce our budget this year as well as next year and future years. We were approached about refunding the 2014 bond. We went out and got quotes from different people that do bonding, and we were able to sustain a $646,000 savings over a 14-year period, which is an average of $46,000 a year. What this request is that giving us the okay to move forward with this. These numbers are not finite because I can't do anything for the refunding until we get approval from City Council and we go through all the different steps we have to. But once we do, this is what the firm anticipates the savings to be. It could be more, it could be less, but this is the numbers that they gave us to start with, which is about an 8% savings.
Questions or comments on Councilman Burns?
Yeah, so, this is like refinancing a house?
Yes.
Okay, it's the same idea that people are doing everywhere. So we're refinancing these, save money, that's what we're doing.
Correct.
Chuck, how often do you review these?
We review them all the time, okay? But if we're at 2014, the next one is 2016, it probably doesn't make sense. There has to be at least, I think it's a 5.5% to 6% savings to make sense to do it.
Okay. Questions or comments on 2186? All right, Chuck, move to
I think
187.
Aviva's got a question.
Aviva, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's okay, thank you. These are not, if we get these refunds, they're not on particular projects. They're sort of on the overall amount that was bonded that month, that year.
All of the bonds that we have left over, Aviva, is what this is doing. I think it's like $8 million. Can't remember what the number is, but it's the whole bond itself.
Okay. So it's not attached to a specific project, for example?
No.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Other questions on 186?
Yes, this is Councilwoman Riley.
Yes.
So based upon what was shown in the documents, though, the interest rates and percentages would be different per the bond and the age of the bond, correct?
Yes, but this is all just related to the 2014 bond that we did, which would have been projects that occurred back in 2011, 12, 13, that was bonded for in 2014.
Oh, hold on. I was having some difficulty with the mute button. So based upon this information you sent us, you showed us bond pricing over the next few years. So we are able to approximate the years and the variability of the bond at its current rate. However, when we move to make this refund with the agency, they are then going to reissue a new bond for the total bond balance, correct?
Correct. That is correct.
However, it's subject to approval. So do we have a pre-approval notice that we will still be within the same rates and see the 8% savings that's projected?
They anticipate that. They can't guarantee it because knowing the environment of today, how it fluctuates, and if things were to skyrocket, we wouldn't go forward with this.
Okay.
As long as it made sense, we will do it.
Okay. And so this is one agency or a number of sub-companies that will buy pieces of the bond?
It's going to be one company. We went out and we got bids from 3 different companies. I can't remember I think one is called PT Baird, one is called Roosevelt and Cross, and the other I think is RBC. They're large bond companies. This is what they do for a living. They buy bonds and then sell it to consumers.
Okay. And how often does the city do this so we know moving forward that this is a possibility for bond ordinances in the future?
It really depends on interest rates. Right now, interest rates are so low that this is the time to really do projects like this. I can't believe we're going to have too many moving forward. You'll see another one that I have later on tonight that I'll talk about that goes back to 2012. But everything is being looked at right now because interest rates are so low.
Okay, thank you for that, Chuck.
Other questions on 2186? Chuck, tell us about 2187, please.
Didn't we ever do 2187?
Oh, we did, I'm sorry. Yes, we did. All right, going to 2189, please.
2189 is a similar type situation. It's with EFC. When we do bonding for the joint sewage treatment plant, we do most of that through Environmental Financing Corporation, which is a state-held fund where they borrow millions of dollars, I'll say probably hundreds of millions of dollars a year, and then loan it out to different municipalities to help them do projects at a reduced interest rate. This 2012 bond, they're going to go through and refinance it. If we want to get the savings for this, they're asking me to sign a document saying that council's given me the authority to sign on the city's behalf to do this refinancing. They're doing the refinancing. If we don't sign the document, we don't get the savings. If we do sign the documents, we will get the savings. They haven't given me the amount of money yet because they haven't gone out and done it yet, but they're asking for this in advance. And I sent you all the documents that I had associated with it.
Questions or comments on 2189?
So this,
Yes, go ahead.
this is sort of the same thing as the last thing we were talking about.
Yes,
Interest rates are lower than they've ever been. We're moving ahead with this.
correct.
No questions? All right, thank you, Chuck. All right, Jared, let's go on to 2184, please.
2184 authorizes an agreement with the Broome County Urban League for use of human services funds from this fiscal year to operate the SUNY Attain Lab at 47 North Street. For those who aren't familiar with the Attain Labs, they are SUNY satellite locations for basically community-based learning centers. They provide things like academic courses, computer literacy, English as a second language courses, as well as certifications for professional development in Microsoft Office or IT infrastructure, QuickBooks, et cetera. So the current SUNY Attain Lab, there's actually two in Binghamton, both operated by the Housing Authority. The Housing Authority location downtown, SUNY Attain is looking to move out of there and move into the 47 North Street Community Center location that's owned and operated by the First Ward Action Council. We've been working with SUNY Attain for probably just short of a year, the First Ward Action Council and the Urban League to come up with a scenario that works for them. SUNY Attain Labs operate with no rent or utilities. They have a sponsor organization. In this case, it will be the city of Binghamton. So this will bring, I think, about 20 computers, as well as educational and vocational classes, technology training, and especially given the future with COVID-19, a potential distance learning opportunity for the North of Main neighborhood. And this agreement with the Urban League will assist in that effort.
Questions or comments?
This is Councilwoman Riley again. Jared, I'm happy to hear about this. Unfortunately, I can't find the page, but is this an ongoing contract or is this a one-time payment for, what page are we on and is this ongoing?
Sure.
Question.
Yep, we fully anticipate it to be ongoing. It's on 143 is, I think, the first page. And it's kind of a unique scenario because the city does not own the building that they're going into. So typically it would be between the Urban League and its host agency. In our case, we partnered with the First Ward Action Council to provide the funding. So we will have an agreement with the Urban League, which will be reviewed on an annual basis, renewed on an annual basis. But we would like to see this in perpetuity.
Thank you.
Other questions? All right, Jared, on the 188, please.
Sure. Late last year and actually early in January of this year, we were approached by folks from the YWCA's Young Wonders Early Childhood Center. And like many child care centers across the southern tier, they've been getting a pretty significant financial hit because of changes to minimum wage, as well as just the general cost of operating daycare. Add into that COVID, and there was additional issues and really a worry about the future of that program. Young Wonders has been around since the mid 70s in Binghamton, and they serve about 100 children a year, focusing on low and moderate income families. About 80% of the children receive some sort of subsidy assistance for tuition, but even with that, they're in kind of financial peril. So what we did is we had budgeted in the fiscal year 46 CDBG funds $15,000 to support the Young Wonders program as they work to develop a sustainability plan for future financial success, deal with the immediate childcare need of COVID, and then also the institutional issues that impact running daycare services in Broome County, such as the Broome County DSS subsidy reimbursement process that it's costing nonprofit agencies a lot of money to run daycare. And it's still a really needed service. So with this $15,000, we view this as sort of a sustainability initiative, provide them the funding, make sure that they can get through the next year or a little bit more, and then also work with them in the meantime to get either new grants, restructuring, or work with DSS on ways that they can increase their revenues.
Questions or comments on this? All right, Jared, on the RL 20-190, please.
Sure. This is simply an ordinance to amend the budget schedule for this year to shift it by a few weeks to allow for any potential changes to federal or state aid before being proposed. Given the dynamics of budgeting and how it works from just a procedural standpoint, having potential revenues that would be a material change to a budget that was presented, just presented, would cause some issues. And so we think that this is the prudent way to go. Congress is in session this week and in the next few weeks. And we feel that having this additional time will really allow for a better informed budget process before it goes to City Council.
Questions on 190, please. All right, Jared, on the one, I'm sorry, go
So
ahead.
when do you think we get it?
It will be on or before the 6th day of October is the current, is the way the legislation is written. But if anything materially changed where we knew regarding federal funding or states funding, then we would be able to go earlier than that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sure you guys are doing this, but I'm just wondering about, this year we lost, beginning with I guess with the second quarter, all the money that we lost in the taxes for the sales tax. So this year, we're going to do the budget not knowing, right? So I hope, what are you doing about that? I should be asking the mayor, I know, but I'm just wondering, Chuck's here, what are we,
Council, let me
what are
answer
we
that.
planning on,
It's one of the reasons we want to push this thing out, so we have a better picture of everything.
Right.
Okay? right now, there's too many balls up in the air to say we'd have to be a conservative and wouldn't be fair to everybody. Okay, so we're trying to hopefully get an answer on a few things. What the federal aid's going to happen? Are the city going to get any? Is the state going to get some? Are they going to? What's going to happen?
Right.
And we don't know that today. So by pushing this out, it will give us a better picture to give a better budget.
Right. Great. Okay. Thanks.
That's our intention here.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments on 190? All right,
This
Judge.
is Councilwoman Riley again.
Sure.
Yes, so now is there a reason why we want to amend the charter opposed to waiving for this specific budget year?
I think maybe Ken can speak to that, but I think this does just apply to this year.
This is to apply to the 2021 budget only, but the schedule is actually part of the charter. So if you're going to change the submission date of the budget, you have to amend the charter for that 1 year. We did the exact same thing in 2011 for the 2012 budget because of the September flood.
Okay, so then this should reflect that it's only a temporary amendment to the charter opposed to a long-standing, and I don't think this paperwork clearly explains that.
The ordinance will absolutely say it's for 1 year only.
Other questions on 190? All right, Jared, 191, please.
Sure. This is the transfer of some old CDBG lines that for costs that will not be rendered to support parks improvements, specifically the ice rink at Recreation Park that was bid out and is awaiting award. Typically, in the past, the city would budget for soft cost engineering services within the engineering department to pay for things like surveying, inspection on either projects that were CDBG funded in CDBG eligible areas or general activities within CDBG eligible areas. As part of some of the reviews that Paul Nelson did as part of coming on board and looking at our CDBG, the city really could not substantiate with hard documentation those engineering chargebacks, and it was in our best practices not to continue them. However, the city still had budgeted the engineering services budget lines. So those need to be repurposed for a public good and a public project. And we'd like to move forward with the parks improvement line, which will allow that to be awarded and move forward as of tomorrow evening.
In full disclosure here, I'm employed by the company that was a successful bidder on the tennis courts at Rec Park along with the ice rink. So I'll be recusing myself from the vote tomorrow night. Is there questions on 191? Yes, Councilwoman Friedman.
Thank you. This is expedited?
Yes, due to the time constraints in getting this awarded so construction can begin on both the tennis courts and the ice rink.
Oh, okay. It's, I think, not indicated, but okay. Good to know. Thank you.
This is Councilwoman Riley.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. So the ice skating rink and the tennis courts at Rec Park meet the requirements for CDBG funding in terms of
Yes.
Okay.
Other questions on 191? All right, on to 120-173. This is the RL that was submitted by Councilman Scareggi, Councilwoman Ressinetti, Councilman Strawn, and myself. And then Councilman Burns Councilwoman Freeman and Councilman Riley submitted their own version, so I thought the best way to do this, we'll talk about the version submitted by Councilman Burns, right, Councilman Riley and Councilwoman Freeman. We can discuss that one now. You three put it together, so whatever you want to talk about here, we certainly can discuss. All right, since Councilman Burns.
Yes. I think that should definitely be put in there about how we want to finance and make sure that the training that the police get, that we support, that I support the police so greatly that I want the Binghamton police to be protected from, like what happened in Rochester. I know that it happened in Rochester, but it's the same. Rochester represents the youth of Binghamton. And that, after I saw that.
I'm having a really hard time hearing Councilman Burns. I don't know if it's just me.
I took off my mask. Anyway, so I really like the one that we did about the training, making sure police training. We would like to have. I support the police, and I want to protect our police from what happened, from something like that, what happened up in Rochester, and where having seen the video, the union representative said that they followed their training perfectly. And I thought to myself, well, I'm on a city council that's about to start a new policing law that has to be approved by next year. And suddenly I want to start finding out, I'd like to go to where we do train the police and talk to the police training and show them the video and say, is this really the training? Because if it is, then we got to change the training. And if it wasn't, then why did they say it was? But that's a whole other thing. I know it's in Rochester, but these other things happen, in a far off country almost, down in some state far away. This happened right here in upstate New York. So I know this resolution is really about honoring a man who gave his life. And I wish that we had kept it to that and not brought all the other elements in, because, that death of that man was, one of the worst things that I'd ever seen. And it still hurts when you think about it. But anyway, that's my 2 cents. I really like the fact that we put in the thing about that we want to supply the training, and that it's not in the resolution, but going forward, I really want us to get involved in this new police law and what the training really is. Anyway, that's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Burns or Councilman Freeman, would you like to discuss the draft that was submitted by you three? I labeled these draft 1 and draft 2 just to make it easier to identify, that's all. Draft 1 being the one submitted by Scaringi, Resinetti, Strawn, and myself, council, and the second one obviously by Riley, Freeman, and Burns.
Sure, I can offer my 2 cents.
Sure, go ahead, Councilwoman.
All right, thanks. So to echo what Councilman Burns was saying, I think, initially this was proposed on the anniversary of Officer Barta's death. And he was an important person in Binghamton's history. There's a community center on the north side named after him. And I think, I think, I'd be happy to sign, to put my support behind a resolution that is sort of focused on that. So in the draft that we proposed, we try to, I think, maybe narrow the focus a little bit more on specifically Officer Barta and the police officers that have died in the line of duty within Binghamton's history. And I personally didn't, since this is a non-binding resolution, I personally didn't feel comfortable pledging to vote in support of certain like partnerships or funding or things like that. So I think we try to, in some senses, narrow the focus, but also keep it general enough that it felt like it was in the same vein of, you know, the non-binding resolution of like the Welcoming Cities resolution or the resolution condemning racism, where it wasn't specifically supporting specific initiatives. And also, you know, I've said this before that I don't believe this was the intention of draft one, but it did seem, it read to me like sort of with a lot of the, you know, generalized support for like police in general, it did read to me like a sort of a counterbalance to the resolution condemning racism. Again, I don't believe that was the intent of it, or, you know, but regardless of the intent, that was the interpretation. So I wanted to kind of back away from that. So it didn't feel like it was sort of going head to head to balance that one out. That's my 2 cents on
Mr. President,
the contrast between draft 1 and 2.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Let's, Councilwoman Rossanetti, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak just to that point real quickly, that it was not in response to anything like that. And the first non-binding resolution, not at all. And it's not to counter anything, because if I recall correctly, not only that other resolution was supported, but it was really enhanced by those of us who finally were given an opportunity to have a few days to look through it. And I think that we not just supported it, but enhanced it. So I just wanted to say that certainly from where I'm coming from, it has absolutely nothing, those two things have absolutely nothing to do with each other. Maybe that is how it's perceived, but I'd like to make it very clear that that was, that's not, in my opinion, where it was coming from. Thank you.
This is Councilwoman. Yeah.
Sure.
Hello. So thank you for that, Sophia. I appreciate that. I think what we've done here is enhanced the version that we received as well. So similar to the process that was done, we received your enhanced version. We reviewed it. We came and we discussed the final outcome. So we submitted our enhancement to you guys. So I think now you see our intent, you feel our intent. So we need to determine if we can proceed with the enhancement as proposed.
All right, at this point.
Can I just say one more thing, Mr. President? I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's you know, a good point. And I think that not all might think that it is an enhancement. And so I appreciate the opportunity to have the conversation. If anything, I don't think in some places it's taken away from the highlight, the work that Lee Barta did, and the work that police officers do. After all, he died because of the work. And so I think that some of the language, and it could be, just be me, I mean, we're a body of 7, it just feels that where there might be some enhancements, that's not the case in every area. If anything, there are some areas where it feels like it comes from a perspective of, you know, deficit. Police needs to do this or do that, and we're not doing enough, which may be true in some cases, because we're striving to do better, but that's not necessarily the focus here. And I mean, when I first read it, I just felt like, okay, I think it's not doing justice to Lee Barda. I don't know, just my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's, in order to move this forward, so let's concentrate on this draft 2 submitted by Riley, Burns, and Friedman. Let's concentrate on that. Who's in favor? Let's do a voice vote. Who's in favor of supporting draft 2? By a voice vote, please.
Can you say that again, Mr. President?
So draft 2 is the one submitted by Councilman Burns, Councilwoman Friedman, and Councilwoman Riley. Let's do a voice. Tell me by your voice, who's in favor of submitting draft 2 forward to vote tomorrow? Councilman Burns said yes. Councilwoman Friedman and Councilwoman Riley. Okay, that's 3. By your voice, who's in favor of moving forward draft 1, which is submitted by Resinetti, Scaringi, Scanlon, and Strawn? By your voice, who's supporting draft 1?
Aye.
Resinetti? Is Phil Strawn on there?
It looks like Councilman Strawn got disconnected.
No, I'm here. I'm here.
Perfect.
Sorry. I think my webcam went off. Yes, aye, Mr. President.
So Councilman Strawn, Councilman Resinetti, Councilwoman Resinetti, Councilman Scaringi, you out there? He's muted. Let me text him. I'm voting yes to move draft 1 forward. Wait for Councilman Scaringi. I'll text him right now. Yes, Councilman Scaringi.
Yeah, sorry about that. I think I had a problem with my microphone. I apologize. I'm encouraged to move forward with draft 1.
All right, so that's 4 people. So we're going to move draft 1 forward for a vote tomorrow. Let's move on to, sure.
We had draft 1 and draft 2. I don't know. Is there nothing in draft 2 that you would put in? I mean, why don't we do it? We can't do a combination of the two. It's either 1 or 2.
It's either 1 or 2, and here's why. Because the drafts are if I look at them, and I've looked at them closely, they're different. A couple words here, a couple words there. It changes the whole tune of the draft for me. So that's why I said draft 1 or 2. So we're moving draft 2 to 1 tomorrow, forward to vote on tomorrow with 4 votes on that. So let's go to Grace Doherty for the rest of the agenda, please.
So this is the pending legislation from 3 weeks ago. RL 20-157 is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an extension agreement with Binghamton City School District for school resource officers at the high school and middle schools. RL 20-158, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an extension agreement with Binghamton University for university liaison office for 2020 to 2021. RL 20-170 is authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Atlantic Mobile Systems LLC, DBA Verizon Wireless for lease of 211 Henry Street for installation of a cellular antenna. RL 20-171, 1-year contract extension for a CSEA contract, 0 increase and no other changes. RL 20-172, 1-year contract extension for fire union with 0 increase in non-financial language changes. And RL 20-175, sale of a portion of 124 Washington Street to Holly Street Hospitality for $1,000. Again, let us know by tomorrow morning which RLs you are not sponsoring. We need to know that so we can get the official packet out to you tomorrow for a meeting tomorrow night.
I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So move.
Thank you. We're adjourned.
Good night, everyone.